In 1967, he also was the host of a program filmed at the Prado Museum in Madrid with Victoria de Los Angeles and Alicia de la Rocha. So those two and Segovia all performed in the film, and some of the art masterpieces that were at the Prado were shown.
Good evening. I am Andrés Segovia, and this is the Prado. I have visited the Prado since I was a boy. And like many other Spaniards, I know my way around it as well as my own home. There are more than 3,000 artworks in this great museum. And it is a deep Spanish satisfaction that not one was brought here by force or plunder. The masterpieces of more than 100 artists, Tintoretto, Botticelli, Rubens, Titian, Bosc, were all acquired peacefully, bought or commissioned by Spanish kings and their agents. Of course, we can show but a few of these treasures, and so we have chosen those that tell us most about Spain. We shall bring here tonight noble music to complement great art. We shall see and hear of Spanish pride, strength, and reverence.
Andrés Segovia plays the first movement of Taroba's Sonatina. It's been said that Enrique Granados composed this glorious tonadilla for the maja, this Spanish version of beauty and loveliness. She has inspired music, poetry, plays, and much conjecture as to the relationship of Goya to this mysterious lady.
In 1979, he played a concert at the White House that was broadcast nationally on PBS.
Good afternoon from the White House, where Vice President Mondale is hosting a recital by the great Spanish guitarist Andrés Segovia.
I recall in a concert that Segovia was doing, he would come out on stage, and this was a trick of his, and it was wonderful because he'd come out on stage and he'd sit down and the audience would get sort of quiet. And he'd wait till they got a little more quiet. And then he'd kind of bend over the guitar and he'd form some kind of a chord, and he'd bend over and he'd just go like this with his hand. He'd go. And you realized you hadn't heard anything. So then the audience got more quiet, and then he'd start. I remember something very fondly, really, when Segovia was well over 80, and this was a good dozen years before his death. I saw him at the, I can't remember the name of the auditorium, on Nob Hill in San Francisco, across from the cathedral. Again, a packed audience, and he played encore after encore because they kept calling him out. And finally he came out, he played one more number, and then he said to the audience, he said, "I would be happy to play for you all night." He said, "but the guitar is a fragile instrument and needs its rest." And then he turned around and left, and everybody understood then that he really wanted to leave. But he satisfied the audience by playing many encores. I remember that Segovia came into the Metropolitan Museum to donate 2 guitars of his to the museum, and we all thought that maybe he was going to play a little something on one of them. But he didn't, and I suppose in a way that added to the dignity of the occasion, because those instruments are in the museum, they are silent now. It was a very moving ceremony, because you realize that these instruments have meant a lot to him, and now they mean a lot to the people who come to the museum and can gaze upon them. The instruments were being retired. The maestro most certainly was not.
I invite all of you to my next concert.
One of the things while I was in Spain, doing this 2020 segment on Segovia, I had the honor of, I wanted to buy a guitar. I had had 2 guitars destroyed in a flood in my Arizona home. And I told Segovia about this and asked him what might be a good guitar to buy. And finally I wound up with the privilege of having Segovia select a guitar for me. And the way we did that was, we had, I think one came from another shop, but 2 from Ramirez in downtown Madrid. Sent them over to Segovia's studio, and a guy came over in what was like a Brinks truck or something, and brought these up, and Segovia played on each of them, and then recommended one for me that he thought was the best, had the best tone. And I have that documented, so that because it has an added value for me, and if I ever did resell it, which I probably won't, but this is the Ramirez that Segovia picked out for me. We had that on camera, and that was part of the piece. His 94th birthday party was in February, I believe, and we filmed this thing in March. And we attended that birthday party, and here was Segovia, now 94 years old, and he ate everything in sight, and he was up till all hours of the night, and guitarists from all over the world, including men like Alirio Diaz, were present. And every time a lady would come in, Segovia insisted on standing up, and he would kiss her hand in the continental fashion. And he was sort of the life of the party. And I said, what a way to celebrate your 94th birthday. I think when I was over there, I got a glimpse of why he was obsessed. And I think it had to do with the mix of cultures that is that part of Spain. Oh, even other parts, the Catalonian. But the Andalusian particularly, and the sound of that mixture of the Moorish influence and what Granada came to represent. You hear it in music like Manuel de Falla's Nights in the Gardens of Spain, which really was written for piano, but there's something about those two cultures as they mixed. It gave a flavor that must have been in the genes of a Segovia. And if he was obsessed with music, I can see how that music would appeal to him. And the guitar is a perfect instrument for that. And that's why I think all his life it meant so much to him to bring great music out of a guitar and to put the instrument on the pedestal that it has been ever since. The last public appearance that he made was in Miami Beach at the Theater for the Performing Arts. That was on April 4th of 1987. He had another concert upcoming later in the month at Carnegie Hall and flew back to New York for it. But he fell ill then and had to cancel that concert. And that was the first time he ever canceled a concert in his long career. Then he returned to Madrid, intending to come back to the United States later on when he recovered. But in Madrid on June the 3rd of 1987, he died.
I am very emotional because this is the studio, plenty of the life of the maestro and his presence here. I feel it that is here with prize, diplomas. He's here, he has worked the last 25 years of his life, working, preparing his programs, working in transcription and also in new things, new composition. He worked every day 6 hours. He begin maybe some days at 9:30. He practicing during 1 hour and a half. And after that, because he left, he get up very early in the morning, he made a little like that. And after that, he's resting and another 1 hour and a half. He come down, we have our apartment, to take a lunch. And after that, back again, practicing, reading, 1 hour and a half, practicing, rest a little bit, and another 1 hour and a half. And after that, it was 6 hours every day. Because he say, like you know, that when he stopped one day without practicing, he knows. The second day, he doesn't practice. The friends know. And the third day, everybody know that he's never practicing. This is the reason he works so hard, really so hard. And for me, I have it because during 2 years, without his presence here, for me, is really emotional for me. And I'm so sorry that I don't have the vocabulary for explain that. But I don't know. And he has made many transcriptions here and prepared his concert, his programs every year, 3 or 4 different programs. And after that, at 8 o'clock,